Welcome, students. And today I'm going to talk about a few linguistic topics not covered in your book. And this will be the last few items for this class. And so without further ado, I will go on and talk about mainly the cultural aspects of linguistics, and then something about the future, and then something about God. So in that particular, so just a few miscellaneous items that when I was studying linguistics at UCLA, and I remember that these were the topics that were really interesting to me. Of course, I could go on and on and on and on about even more linguistic topics that I studied, but I figured I would just limit myself to just these three for now. So as we near the end of this class, I hope that you maintain your interest in linguistics. For me, it has been a lifetime passion for me to study linguistics, and it has been an honor to teach this class for the past 8 weeks. So without further ado, I will now share my screen, and then we could discuss more about linguistics. Well, the last of it anyway. So in your textbook, we discussed mainly that English has a word order of subject, verb, and object. And then I mentioned that in other cultures have different word orders. And so today we're going to explore the study of language, which touches not only on grammar and culture, but also on technology and your future careers. So one of the most fascinating aspects of linguistics is that not all languages organize words in the same way. English uses subject-verb agreement structure. So for example, English, the cat, subject, eats, verb, the fish, object. But that's just one possibility. In fact, the world's languages show a variety of basic word orders. Here are a few common ones. So as mentioned before, subject, verb, object occurs in languages such as Mandarin, Chinese, and Swahili. But when you have other languages like Japanese, Korean, Persian, and Hindi, they have a sentence structure of subject, object, verb. Arabic, Welsh, Classical Hebrew have a word order of verb, subject, object, and then Fiji and Malaysia has a word order of verb, object, subject, and then it's very rare, but found in Amazonian and Austronesian languages, you have object, subject, verb, and object, verb, subject. And so here is an example of a Japanese sentence in which you have the word order of subject, object, verb. And so the cat, the fish eats. So in this sentence, the verb always comes at the end of the sentence, which is typical of subject, object, verb. Word order is not arbitrary. It often reflects deep cognitive and cultural influences, and thus influences how people process information. And so as a result, when I teach ESL students, so ESL students who come from languages that with subject, verb, object, have fewer problems writing English and fewer problems understanding English. But students who come from languages with other word orders like subject, object, verb, like Japanese students or Korean students, have a lot more trouble writing English and speaking English, simply because the word order of their sentences is not the same. And so here are some more examples of sentences from other cultures. So once again, you have she subject, eats verb, rice object, subject verb object. And so in English, she eats rice. And in Chinese, believe it or not, Chinese also has subject verb object. And so you would say 他吃面 or 他吃米饭. Oh yeah, 他吃米饭. So 他 is the subject, 吃 is the verb, 饭 米饭 is rice. And so that is noun. So that is the object. So subject verb object is the same in Chinese, but in Swahili, oh yeah, and Swahili and Thai. Okay, so it's all subject verb object. But in Japanese, and this is what's to me, this is what's fascinating, is subject, object, verb. So you have in Japanese, she rice eats. Okay, that's how they would write their sentences with she writes eats in Japanese, Korean, Turkish, and Persian. She writes eats. And then in Arabic, Hebrew, Irish, and Tagalog, it's verb, subject, object. So that becomes ate she the rice. Ate she the rice. Eat she the rice. Eat she the rice. And so that's for verb, subject, object sentence. And then less common is verb, object, subject. So eats the food the woman. Instead of the woman eats the food, you have eats the food the woman. And then you have eats rice the woman. So that's verb, object, subject. And then very, very rare word order is, so in English, it would be the man saw the jaguar. But in these two languages, which I can't pronounce, Amazon, Hikariana and Waro, then it becomes object, subject, verb, or object, verb, subject. The jaguar, the man saw. Fish, me eats. And some languages have flexible word order. And so in Russian, you can have subject, verb, object, verb, subject, or object, subject, verb due to rich case ending. In Finnish, the word order varies to change emphasis. In Latin, classical Latin had flexible word order and often subject, object, verb, but varied. So, it's fascinating to see the different word orders in different languages. And so word order varies across the world and it's not random. And so it reflects how different languages mark relationships between words. Some languages rely on word order for meaning, like English, while others rely on case endings or particles, like Japanese or Russian. So studying syntax and grammar helps us understand how humans organize thoughts. And so once you understand how humans organize thoughts, then you can help AI be trained to understand different languages and structures. And so the major language families and typologies, languages can also be grouped based on historical and genetic relationships. So here are a few language families. Indo-European, so that's English, Spanish, Hindi, Russian, Persian. This is the world's most widely spoken language group. Sino-Tibetan, Mandarin, Chinese, Burmese, Tibetan. Afro-Asiatic, Arabic, Hebrew, Amharic. Niger-Congo language group, Swahili, Yoruba, and Zulu, spoken throughout sub-Saharan Africa. And then Turkic language group, which is Turkish, Uzbek, and Kazakhstan. And then Austroasiatic and Austronesian language group, which would be Vietnamese, Khmer, Tagalog, and Hawaiian. And so we also study languages typologically based on their morphology. And of course, that's word formation. We learn that syntax, sentence structure, and sound systems, phonetics, not just family history. And then another topic that I found interesting is turn taking and how people talk. So this is part of discourse analysis that we went through. And so language isn't just structure, it's also social behavior. And so one key area of study in linguistics is turn taking. So different cultures have different rules for speaking and pausing, which can lead to misunderstandings in intercultural communication. So in Western culture, we value assertiveness. So as a result, you have fast turn taking. Interruptions are sometimes seen as energetic or enthusiastic, and pauses are short. And so in Western culture, the more you interrupt, it's seen as passion and enthusiasm for the subject. It means that you're truly interested and passionate about your subject, so much so that all the different speakers would interrupt each other and fight for, the listener's attention to show how much they're interested in the topic. And so that's considered the value of assertiveness. In Eastern culture, such as Japan, Korea, China, they value more respect and reflection. So there's longer pauses because people think a lot more before they talk. And then there's more long pauses between turns. And when one person speaks, everybody truly stops and listens. And so interruptions are often considered rude and selfish. And speakers will wait longer to respond. So these differences reflect deeper cultural values. Western cultures prioritize individualism and self-expression, while Eastern cultures tend to emphasize group harmony and respect. So studying pragmatics, the rules of how language is used in context, helps us to understand this. So this was when I was talking about the closet. Remember, I talked about how the French lady wanted me to put my clothes away to the closet, and I thought that I could leave it under the bed. And during that video, you hear a lot of it. And so pragmatics is the art of being polite and courtesy. And so and how you are courteous and polite, it depends on your cultural values. And so pragmatics, in a lot of ways, is also a study of cultural behavior and what is expected of you. And so I went over in the pragmatics video a lot about how, as children, we are taught the pragmatics of politeness, courtesy, say please when someone says something, say thank you, say wave bye-bye. You teach all these little things to kids. And the parents of different cultures will teach their kids different behavior. So that's why Japanese kids are so quiet while, let's say you're in a restaurant. You'll see the American kids jumping up and down and they're showing a lot of excitement. And that's considered normal for a kid that age, to be noisy and passionate and so on. It's not something bad. It's just the way it is. And then you see a Japanese family walk in and it's so quiet. And that's normal for Japanese culture, And so if you're going to go to other places, you have to study the pragmatics, in other words, the cultural behavior of that culture in order to fit in. And that's how that relates to linguistics, is that the language aligns with our cultural behavior. And so going on to the next one, but where did all of this language and behavior come from? what are the origins of language? And so when I was studying at UCLA, we went over many different theories of language origin, as well as many different people. Well, we also studied many different ways of like first language acquisition and second language acquisition. And we studied many different theories. And I don't think that this class, we didn't get a chance to study all the different theories of second language acquisition. And we also didn't study all the different theories of first language acquisition. But for me, at a Christian school, what fascinates me the most is the divine source. And since I'm teaching at a Christian university, then I want to go over the fact that the divine source theory says that that the origin of our language comes from God. So as students at a Christian university, many of you are familiar with the story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11. According to scripture, early humanity once spoke a single language. So when humans attempted to build a tower reaching the heavens, God confused their speech and scattered them, creating the many languages of the world. And so come, and then in the Genesis, come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. And Genesis chapter 11, verse 7. So this account, often referred to as the divine source of language origin, suggests that language is a gift from God and that all human tongues may have once been unified, possibly even divinely inspired. So what are linguists doing with this idea? So this is the part. So in your textbook, they introduce the idea of divine source theory. And then but your textbook doesn't talk about, but what are linguists doing with this divine source theory? So while secular linguistics may not officially endorse the Babel account as historical, many linguists, believers and non-believers alike, are working on tracing the roots of language back as far as possible toward what they sometimes call proto-human or proto-world language. Therefore, these efforts may not explicitly seek to recover God's language, but in many ways, they echo that very goal to find the original source of all human language. And so it depends on who you talk to. Some people just see proto-human language as like an archaeological project where you just research where did language come from? How did it originate? So that this could help linguists go back and discover the origins of language and the history of humanity. And then those who are believers, that's the secular view, and then the religious view for the believers is trying to go back and figure out to find the original source and to write in linguistics God's language to answer the research question, what is God's language? And so in comparative linguistics, they search for, so in order to find God's language, you have to search for common words and common roots that are the same across all languages. So this whole thing is called comparative linguistics. Linguists go and gather data from hundreds of languages from across the world. Then they compare similar sounding words with similar meanings, especially for core concepts like mother, father, water, sky, fire, hand, eye. And then the comparative linguists look for systematic sound correspondence and patterns of change. And they reconstruct proto-forms or hypothetical original words that could have existed thousands of years ago. For example, English, Latin, Sanskrit, reconstructed Proto-Indo-European comes out as father, pater, pitter, petter. This is the process used to reconstruct languages like Proto-Indo-European, which is the ancestor of most European and Asian languages. Then from proto-languages to proto-world. Now, some linguists go further and they ask, could all the world's languages, Asian, African, Native American, Polynesian, and more, go back to a one single root? And of course, that single root that the believers would say, that single root is God. And so the whole thing about divine source is a controversial but fascinating question in the field of macro-comparative linguistics. Scholars like Joseph Greenberg, Merritt Rulin, and others have proposed methods to compare deep-level similarities across all known language families. Their goal is to identify universal roots, common grammatical patterns, and possible pieces of original proto-language of what some might poetically call God's language. So at a Christian school, that just strikes me as totally cool. As Christians studying linguistics, we can approach this quest with a dual lens, faith lens. We affirm that language is a gift from God, part of being made in his image. Genesis 1:27. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. Language allows us to think, relate, name, and praise. The story of Babel reminds us of God's sovereignty and the diversity of humanity. Scientific lens. We recognize that scientific tools like comparative linguistics, phonology, and historical reconstruction can be used to appreciate the beauty of God's design. By studying patterns in language, we may catch glimpses of the unity that once existed before Babel. In that way, searching for the original language is not just a linguistic project, it's a way of seeking to understand God's creative and redemptive work in human history. Final thought, will we ever be able to reconstruct a language that Adam spoke, or the one that Noah taught his sons, or the divine speech at Babel? And that question that's open to discussion. But Revelation 7:9 tells us that in heaven, people from every tribe, nation, and tongue will worship together. Perhaps one day, the confusion of Babel will be undone, and a heavenly language of unity and peace and praise will be restored. Until then, linguistics invites us to study the many tongues of the earth, and in doing so, retrace the fingerprints of the divine word behind all human words. So I personally find the whole study of proto-language to be fascinating. Imagine being able to hear what God sounded like in his very words, and not just the words translated from Hebrew or translated from, but as one language. So that's that. I remember at UCLA when the teacher was discussing that, I was so fascinated by that. And so that's the divine source theory that your textbook, mentions. And then now I'm going to switch gears to chapter 12 about the brain. And in this class, you are not required to read chapter 12 about the brain and language and how the brain processes language and that sort of thing. But if you want to go into, if you want to understand more about how ChatGPT and AI processes language, and you want to go into the field of AI, and then you need to understand neurolinguistics. So now let's shift from culture to science. And so I've gone over this a little bit, but what I want to do in this section is not only go over the parts of how the brain, processes language, but also go over the different jobs and fields that you can get into in order to, if you combine AI and linguistics. And so I mentioned before about the possibility of getting a job that once you study linguistics and computer science, you can get into AI. And so in this discussion, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about what exactly are those jobs. So neurolinguistics is the study of how language is processed in the brain. And linguistics helps us answer questions like, neurolinguistics helps us answer questions like, how does the brain understand and produce language? What happens when someone has a stroke or brain injury and loses language? How do children acquire language? So with the rise of artificial intelligence and computational linguistics, neurolinguistics is becoming even more relevant and more important. If we want machines to understand human language naturally, like Siri, Alexa, or ChatGPT, we must understand how humans process, speak, and understand language first. And so AI models learn patterns, but they don't understand context, nuance, emotion, the way our brains do. And so combining neuroscience, linguistics, and computer science is key to understanding AI in an ethical and effective way. And so if you combine linguistics and AI, okay, here are some of your career paths, okay, that can prepare you for cutting edge careers. So computational linguists. So you could, if you marry linguistics and computers, you can become a computational linguist, a speech recognition engineer, an AI ethicist with a linguistic focus, a neurolinguist, language data analyst, a UX writer or voice UX designer, a localization specialist. And what are all of these? What is that? So a computational linguist would design algorithms that process human language for Google, Apple, or OpenAI. A speech recognition engineer would build voice assistants and automatic transcription systems. An AI ethicist would analyze how algorithms handle language bias, dialects, and fairness. A neurolinguist would work in labs and hospitals or research centers studying language and the brain. A language data analyst would clean, label, and interpret language data for tech companies. A UX writer or voice UX designer would design language interactions for chatbots and apps. And a localization specialist would adapt software and AI models to work in different languages and cultures. So even if you're more interested in education or social science, linguistics is useful for careers in language teaching, speech therapy, forensic linguistics, translation, and cross-cultural communication. Final thoughts. Linguistics is the study of how humans communicate, but it's also a bridge to culture, cognition, and technology. And as AI continues to grow, the world needs linguistically informed minds who understand not just code, but context. If you can think like a linguist and a coder, or like a linguist and a cultural anthropologist, the future is wide open for you. And that's it. The rest of it, we've already studied morphology. I'm not sure why. So basically, linguistics is a great way to open the door to helping AI helping you understand how to create more human brain AI. And that's what they're doing now. And I discussed that in previous videos. And so that's it for this video. And that's it I'm gonna talk about for linguistics. Oh, I could go on and on and on, hundreds of videos just like this, but I don't think everybody has the time for that. So this will be kind of like my farewell video. And I just want to say that it's been a pleasure making all of these videos. So this is what I would call my week 9 video, even though there's only 8 weeks in the class. And so I hope that you enjoyed this short trip through linguistics. I totally did not get a chance to even teach you how to do the phonetics alphabet or how to do all of that. There's so much more to teach about linguistics, but it is a great field. And knowing how to speak other languages, as I said a gazillion times, opens the door to many different cultures. And when I teach the week 7 of my ENGL 101 class, I teach the students that to get to know other cultures, that's how you get to open your eyes and go beyond the stereotypes that you hear in social media. People are not all, it's not all bad news. And so in order to get over or go beyond what you hear, the fake news, as it were, in the news about other cultures, you need to learn about other cultures, meet other people from other cultures, and in order to do that, learn language and be aware of the study of language, which, by the way, is the name of your book, The Study of Language, linguistics, because linguistics is defined as the study of language. So we go back to the very first, how we first started this whole class is the origins of language and why people talk and communicate in the first place. And so that's basically, this was my major, and I've used my linguistics, in my case, I've used my applied linguistics major to teach English composition, English grammar, English writing. Let's see. I remember I didn't get into writing a dictionary of saving someone's extinct language. Instead, I went into teaching and education. And that's how I use my linguistic, to teach ESL students. And teaching ESL has been the greatest joy of my life. I've enjoyed teaching students from all around the world of all the different backgrounds. And my study in linguistics helped me understand the different language groups, the different cultures. It helped prepare me for a career in ESL, ELL, and EFL. I know that's alphabet soup, but mainly English language learning. That's what ELL stands for. And also, there's so many controversies and debates going on, and I don't have time to go over all of that in the short 8 weeks that I have with you. But I just want to encourage you to get into linguistics. It is a fun field. And as I close on English 420, I encourage you to study linguistics. And then you combine that with, say, engineering or computer programming, and then you end up with computational linguistics and AI, and then you can help design the next generation of AI models. And hopefully you could design an AI that's actually safe and doesn't hallucinate. So that's all I'm going to say for this class. It has been an honor for me to teach this class, and I hope that more students sign up for ENGL 420 so I could teach this class again. So on that note, if you like this video, feel free to subscribe to the Professor H writing channel, and you can always email me at any time. Have a great week.